RenderForest.com.
Hi all, I'm Trisha Peach, host of the Peach Buzz, and today I want to talk about a topic that's heavy on my heart, and that is the problem of Christians behaving like jerks. And if that offends you that I use the term jerk, I think you'll see what I mean in a minute. It started for me not being a jerk most of the time, but when I was in high school, I was a waitress at a Chinese and Thai restaurant, and I loved it. I actually enjoyed that job. I enjoyed meeting customers. I enjoyed remembering what they liked the most. It was a small town up by the Mackinac City, Michigan. I enjoyed getting to learn all the different dishes. It was Chinese and Thai, which is my favorite food. At the time, I just enjoyed every minute of it. And the owners were Laotian. They were Hmong refugees that had come to the United States after Vietnam. And they had started this business, and they worked so hard, literally 14, 15 hours a day or more. I, of course, was not pulling that many hours, but I remember very vividly one of the days, it was a Wednesday, midweek, and there was a church group that came in, and you could spot them. You could spot that church group immediately. You knew, because they were a little bit dressed up in this town. They were a little bit dressed up, big families. They'd get a big table all together, and you knew they'd just come off of Wednesday night, you know, Awana or Bible study, and we all cringed. We cringed, and I will never forget what my boss said to me. My boss looked at me and said, "You know what, those are your people, you deal with them." And I thought, no, why do I have to deal with them? And the other people that worked there all said, yeah, make Trish do it. She's the Christian. She should have to deal with the Christians. And I was just appalled that Christians had such a bad reputation in food service. And I figured out why very, very quickly. I didn't want to wait on them either, because when you would wait on groups after church or whenever they were there, Christian groups, they were typically the most demanding. They were typically horrible tippers, just terrible tippers. They were the most complaining. They would send things back over and over and over. And they typically, because they had a lot of kids, there'd be a horrendous mess everywhere that we have to clean up. And I love kids. I'm kids pastor. I love it. I love kids. This was a major problem, though, because whenever we saw a group coming in, if they thought this might be a church group, I got stuck with them. And it was not fun. I would work my tail off trying to make them happy, trying to bring them what they wanted. They'd send back the pie. It's not homemade enough, okay? Smile, bring them coffee. Coffee's not fresh enough. Make another pot, okay? Sure. Then, well, I asked you for crayons, and I brought crayons, but you didn't bring a blue crayon, and on and on and on and on. And then when they'd leave, you'd be lucky if there's $1 at the table. And however you feel about tips, here's the reality. I made back then $2.25 an hour. I survived on my tips. I still remember one pastor's group that had come in. It was an interdenominational pastor's group that sat down, and I was thinking, oh yeah, I recognize them because my parents are pastors. My parents were pastors in the community, so I'm thinking, oh yeah, I know these 4 pastors. They left me a pile of pennies because they didn't think the coffee was fresh enough. And my boss, I was glad it was me taking this, because it would have been bad for our bosses to see another terrible witness. My boss was just like, that's why you have to have the Christians. I'm not waiting on them. And I kept thinking to myself, this is a terrible witness. This is a horrible witness. We all would fight over the male truckers, because male truckers, especially the smokers, they would tip really well. They were kind, courteous, liked the food. I'd see them coming up the walkway, and I'd have what they wanted, usually ready, the order. and we would fight over who got them. The business people on their lunches, wonderful to wait on. And I usually made really good tips. I made good money, especially for a high schooler. I made excellent money. And I remember my own parents, it was kind of a wake-up call. My parents, being pastors in the community, they admit that at that point, they were not very good tippers. My mother would never tip more than 9% because she said, I'm not giving them more than I give God, the 10% tithe. And my mother, if she said, if I don't get what I consider good service, they're not getting a tip. But when I came home, and some days I'd be so frustrated because I would say, why? I don't even want to work Wednesdays. I don't want to work Wednesdays or Sundays. I don't want to work either because I don't want to deal with the church groups. Please, God, I don't want to deal with the church groups. Give me the karate groups. Those were always great. They would tip really well. They always loved the food and would be so polite and kind. The sports groups, I really liked having the sports groups. They were great. My mother started to think about it, and I said, Mom, you tithe on everything you make, but you don't go out to eat every single meal of every day all through the week. And these people make $2.25 an hour. They're trying to make a living. And my mother and dad changed that day. They became really good tippers because they saw the witness that it was, a terrible witness, by the way. And I chose to address this week because I had an interesting conversation with my daughter's friend. She's a young girl and she's working at a very popular fast food chain. And I said, oh, how's your job going? And she said, I quit. Okay. And unless you've been hiding under a rock, you know that we've got a major labor shortage right now all over the country. We do not have enough people for the jobs that are there. People are not wanting to work. So it's not good when you have someone quitting and leaving the workforce. And I said, why did you quit? And she said, I just couldn't take it anymore. And I said, what happened? And she was giving me examples that the young boy that she was working with had on 4 different occasions a full drink thrown at him. Now, this is not a big town that I live in. We're in a suburb, but this is not a very big town. And then she said the final straw for her, she just takes the orders. She doesn't do anything else. She just takes people's orders. She took this lady's order and she had a lot of special orders that she wanted. And so this girl said, can you pull on ahead and we'll bring your food out? This lady pulled on ahead, got out, went into the restaurant, went back into the drive-thru just to scream at this girl. Just to scream and swear at this young girl. And she said she was just traumatized. The manager had to come out and argue with this woman. I was horrified, absolutely horrified that this is happening in my own town. This is disgusting. Another thing that made me want to talk about this week was I went into different restaurants, Subway. I like Subway. I went into Subway to get a sandwich, and there was a sign, a handmade sign that said, there is a massive labor shortage right now. Please be kind to those of us who still showed up. And I thought, how sad they have to make a sign, please be kind to those of us who showed up. And the kids behind the counter, I say kids, but they look like they can't be more than 17. And I really felt like I needed to talk about this week. And we all know it's a bad witness when you have the honk if you love Jesus bumper sticker and you're cutting people off and acting like a jerk when you're driving. Sometimes we don't think about the people that make our food, deliver our food, and I wonder where this comes from. I think it comes from a sense of pride and entitlement. My generation, Gen X, I'm turning 44, we might think, well, I did that back when I was in high school. I paid my dues and, people treated me that way. So that is a horrible way to think, that entitlement that you're better than somebody because they are working in food service. A lot of people my age and my parents' age are working in food service right now. No one is better than anyone else, and I think we need to repent and have God hopefully forgive us for how we treat the people that we encounter every day. there's a reason you're waiting in such long lines, because people don't want to work. And no one, I'm going to repeat that, no one should have to endure verbal abuse as part of their job. No one should have to endure verbal abuse as part of their job. This is insane. It's ridiculous. And even more than that, okay, if you're going to call yourself a Christian, then you should be the best. You should be the kindest to every person behind that counter, even if they got you not so fresh coffee and they forgot your ketchup packets. If you're going to call yourself a Christian, you're wearing a Christian t-shirt, or they know you're from a church, you should be going above and beyond. We should be the best tippers. We should be the most understanding. We should be going out of our way, because they're going through a horrible, rough time right now. If you're going to wear a Christian t-shirt and they know you're a Christian and they call you a Christian, if you're not going to tip, stay home. Don't eat out. Because you're being a black mark on the cause of Christ. You're actually doing detriment to the cause of Christ. Either be quiet, don't tell anybody you're a Christian. For heaven's sake, tell them you're an atheist. Tell them whatever you want to tell them. Tell them you're the worst awful person who's ever lived, but for heaven's sake, do not tell them you're a Christian if you're going to act like a jerk. You need to be kind. Like I said, it shouldn't just be tolerating. You should be the very best customer they have, even when they get it wrong, because you don't know what they went through. And I have to think, how would Jesus treat someone that brought him food? How would he treat someone that was making the food? Look how he treated Mary and Martha. There is no way that a Christian, someone who calls himself a Christian, should start going all Karen on somebody. This is wrong. And even more so, if we see someone acting like that, if we see someone verbally abusing someone else, shouldn't we be speaking up? Shouldn't we say, hey, that's really rude. That is extremely rude. You should not talk to them that way. Shouldn't we be speaking up for them? And I understand it's more than just the food service industry. I was waiting in a line forever at Walgreens the other day. And I wondered, did they close the pharmacy early? Why is this line going for 30 minutes? And I was like, maybe it's closed. So I asked the manager, is it closed? And the manager said, no. She said, please be patient with us. We have no one to work. There's one lady. There's a line a mile long at the drive-thru and inside. She has no help. And when I see this lady, she's very pregnant, and she is pasting that smile on. She looks exhausted. She's working her tail off. People are chewing her out. And the manager said, we're not even getting applications. We're trying to hire people, and we're not even getting applications. And we're sorry that this line is so long. And I thought, I need to, if I can convince even one person watching this, even one person, to show kindness to the person that is waiting on you, no matter where that is, please show kindness. Even if you're not a Christian, show kindness. But if you are a Christian and they know you're a Christian, you should be the best customer on the face of the planet, even when they get it wrong, if they mess the whole thing up, if you have to wait in line, God forbid. We don't like to wait for anything. We should be the very best. I think we start to think of these people as a commodity and not as a human being, as a person. It's like, I want my stuff right now, let's go. And we're treating them like they're not even human. My husband got a little taste of this when I worked as a children's pastor in Dayton, Ohio at Christian Life Center. He was still going through school for networking and IT, so he was working delivering pizzas from Donato's Pizza, and it was downtown Dayton. He ended up the only driver that was not robbed, and I think it's because Scott, he wouldn't get out of the car if he thought something was fishy or something was going down. Scott wouldn't get out of the car. He said these drivers had to deal with people just no tip, they chew them out, curse them out, and you're leaving their house and there's a honk if you love Jesus bumper sticker. This should not be happening. Christians have bad days too, but that should be the complete out there exception not something that consistently happens. And I talked to a waitress recently, and she agreed. She said church groups can be some of the worst to have to deal with because they're so demanding. It's hard to make them happy, and they do not tip well at all. So here's my challenge. Here's my challenge to all of you. We need to change this. We need to change this paradigm, okay? And I know we all say, oh, we would never do that. But I know, as a children's pastor, you're trying to watch those budget dollars, right? You're watching those budget dollars. You want to make sure you don't go over on the budget. You need to include those tips for the pizza that you order for your kids' rally, for your youth rally. Your church should be known as the best tippers, better than any other tippers. You should be known as the kindest, most generous. You should be known as going out of your way to help the people that are serving. They are there. Guys, like that homemade sign said, we need to be showing incredible kindness to those who are still showing up. Oh my gosh. And this includes every industry. My sister-in-law is a nurse, and she talks about the verbal abuse that people in the medical field face. Christians, there is no excuse for being verbally abusive to anyone, but especially your doctor, your nurse, the people that are trying to help you and serve you. They're going to make mistakes. They're working all these extra hours right now. They're working extra hours. They're not getting their breaks. They are trying to cover for all the people who aren't there. We should be overflowing with kindness and encouragement for those that are still there. And I'm making a promise right now. If I hear someone making a fuss and I'm waiting in line, I'm going to speak up and I'm going to say, that is rude. That is out of line. You should not be talking to them like that. And I think we all, here's my challenge, can we be the kindest people ever to those we encounter this week? Those that showed up and delivered the pizza. They showed up and were working on your pharmacy order, your pharmacy pickup, to the person working the drive-through, to the person that is serving at your table or taking your reservation at the hotel. We should be the light, the examples. Like I said, if you cannot tip, don't eat out, please. And if you do, for heaven's sake, don't let them know you're a Christian. Yeah, please, we don't want to claim you. If you claim to be a Christian, you should be the best tipper, and you should be the most encouraging, and you should be the light. Also, because I was a waitress, I can say this, I didn't have a problem if people left tracts. And the other waitresses, we didn't have a problem with tracts. I'm a Christian, but I would leave them for the others that weren't Christians. But if you're going to leave a tract, you should be the best tipper. You better leave a really good tip, because you know what kind of an insult that is if you leave no tip but just a tract? They're not going to read it because they don't want to be like you. I think we should be so full of the love of Jesus that they say, I want the Jesus that you have. This person is full of joy and kindness and is generous. When we eat out now, my husband even more than me, we always think about the tip before we go out. You should be, your church, if your church orders in food for an event, you should be the best tippers. You should be the best, not the worst. So here's my challenge to you this week, to show kindness to someone that is waiting on you this week. For me today, it was the checkout lady at Walgreens. Show kindness, even if they don't deserve it. Show them some grace. And what about you? What are your stories? Have you ever worked as a waitress or at a fast food place or in the service industry? I know I'm not alone in saying, Christians, we have to do better. And I do not apologize for saying that. We have to do better. It's inexcusable. Put your stories down below. I read every single comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And there's your challenge for this week. Go show the love of Jesus to someone in the service industry today. All right. I love you guys. I'll see you next week on the Peach Buzz.